you hear the phrase self-mastery thrown around a ton. You hear it in coaching conversations, you hear it in mastermind groups, you read it in business and personal development books. It's thrown around a ton. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there's not a whole heck of a lot of clarity around when we talk about self-mastery. What do I master? How do I know what I'm supposed to be mastering? And in my opinion, self-mastery starts with having clarity around who you are, self-awareness. And so one day I'm sitting in a CEO mastermind with Gary Keller, and he has us turn to a tool that asks us to do some self-evaluation work, some self-awareness work. And it was 4 or 5 points that he asked us to evaluate about our strengths, our weaknesses, those types of things. And I found that to be a really, really helpful exercise. So I stole that exercise, tweaked it, changed it, and put my own spin and language on it, and came up with what I call a self-assessment tool. 5 points, very easy. And I want to introduce that to you today. So the first point that this worksheet is going to work you through is asking you, what is your superpower? What is the thing that you are uniquely, wonderfully adept at doing? For a lot of us in sales, it has to do with talking to people, with closing business, with having people feel comfortable working with us and being in our presence. With operations folks, it may be systematizing things and creating a routine that the whole team can really lean into and find a rhythm in. What is that superpower? What is the thing that you seem to be uniquely adept at doing? Once we have that clarity, we need to flip the coin over. We need to look at what's my biggest weakness? Essentially asking ourselves the question, how am I achieving massive growth and success in spite of X? And X is that weakness. We all have it. We're not all going to be great at everything. That's not our goal in life. We need to, though, have clarity around what are the things that I struggle with. And really, for this purpose, for the purpose of this exercise, let's just zero in on one thing. Once we know our strength and our weakness, I also like to look at what I call, what is my grind? What is the thing that I'm not uniquely adept at doing? It's also something that I am capable of doing. So it's not my greatest weakness, but it's not something that brings me, love, light, and happiness and joyfulness. It's just the thing that also just needs to get done. Especially if you're running a smaller organization, there's going to be a lot of tasks on your plate or things that you're going to need to get done that are not your one thing, such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary, but it is something that needs to be done. This is going to be one of the things that we're going to leverage off to someone else as quickly as humanly possible. So what does that grind space look like? Once we now have clarity over my superpower, my greatest weakness, and what my grind is, then we're going to shift over and start to look at our circle. Who is around us that's going to help support us and help us to grow? So number 4, the next thing that we're going to zero in on is what I call your Dr. Watson. This comes from Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Sherlock was the star of the show, so to speak, but man, oh man, if you actually read that text, he's an interesting character. He's got a lot of flaws. We all know his superpower is solving crimes, solving mysteries, and looking for details and clues. However, if you read the text, he's a very, very quirky dude and needed Dr. Watson to be able to manage himself and his clients. And so looking around yourself and asking, who is my Dr. Watson? Who is the person that helps to be the perfect foil to who I am and my weaknesses? If you don't have that person, or even if you do, if you're continuing to grow your organization, the 5th and last thing that I'm going to ask you to look at is who I call your Waldo. Waldo, if you've ever played that book, read that book, I don't know how you would phrase that, is that a book from I remember it from the 90s, where it's a picture full of people and in various environments, and you're looking for one dude named Waldo. We all know what Waldo looks like when you're playing the game. He's a guy with glasses and floppy hair sticking out of a floppy hat. He's got a red and white striped shirt. He's got blue jeans on, and I think it's black and white shoes. You know what you're looking for. Waldo is the person in your world that you're missing, that if you got clarity over who it was and what they would be doing, it would be easier to find that person and offload the grind or the weakness to them. So first we have to get really, really crystal clear over who is my Waldo. What am I looking for? Because if you've ever played that game, it's difficult to find him because there's a ton of things that kind of sort of look like Waldo in each page, but it'd be a whole heck of a lot harder to find him if you didn't know who you were looking for. So to recap, we're starting with ourselves. What is my greatest strength? What is my greatest weakness? What is my grind? And then we're shifting to look at who's around me. Who's my Dr. Watson and who's my Waldo? Once we've got clarity on these 5 points, it really allows us to drill into where I should be spending my time, energy, and effort, and allows us to get one step closer to self-mastery.